Yes, please. Sir, मैं आपको
telephones off.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And also, you will introduce.
I will
very short introduction.
2 to 3 lines. A very good evening to all of you. On behalf of India International Center, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to this book discussion program on the Centers of Power, My Years in the Prime Minister's Office and Security Council, authored by Ambassador Chinmaya Gharekhan. To discuss the book, we are indeed honored to have a very distinguished panel of speakers. We have with us Ambassador Shyam Saran, who is the President, India International Center and former Foreign Secretary of India, and has served as Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Nuclear Affairs and Climate Change. Welcome, sir. We have with us Shri Maharaj Krishan Rasgotra, a diplomat and former Indian Foreign Secretary. He was High Commissioner of India to the United Kingdom and Ambassador to Morocco, Tunisia, the Netherlands, Nepal, France, and UNESCO. Welcome, sir. We have with us Shri K. Natwar Singh, former Minister for External Affairs. He served as India's ambassador to Poland, India's Deputy High Commissioner to UK, and India's ambassador to Pakistan. And welcome, sir, to this discussion. We have with us Shri Hamid Ansari, former Vice President of India and diplomat. In a diplomatic career spanning 38 years, he served as the Indian ambassador to Australia, Afghanistan, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. He also served as the permanent representative of India to the United Nations. Welcome, sir. And finally, the author of the book, Ambassador Shri Chinmaya Gharekhan, who served as chairman of the International Control Commission in Laos, Indian ambassador to Vietnam, and to the United Nations in Geneva. He served as India's permanent representative to the United Nations and was elected to be the president of the United Nations Economic and Social Council in 1990. With this brief introduction, may I request Ambassador Shyam Saran to release the book and request other panelists to join him. Thank you very much, sir. I request Ambassador Saran to take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Shri Hamid Ansari ji, former Vice President of India. Shri Natwar Singh ji, former Minister of External Affairs. the esteemed doyen of the Foreign Service and former Foreign Secretary, Shri Maharaj Krishna Rasgotra ji, the author of the book, Centers of Power, Ambassador Chinmaya Gharekhan, many distinguished guests, also members of the Foreign Service family who are present here in great strength, I see. Welcome to all of you to this very, very special event. As president of the India International Center and also as a former Foreign Service officer, I would like to convey my gratitude to Shri Gharekhan ji for giving us the privilege of hosting this very important event at our center. This is in many ways a very historic event because very rarely do you see the most celebrated and I would say respected figures associated with what has been a defining period in India's diplomacy gathered together on the same stage. I cannot think of any other occasion where the stars were so aligned. That testifies to the very high regard in which Shri Gharekhan is held not only in the Foreign Service fraternity, but also among several generations of the movers and shakers of this country. But Shri Gharekhan's reputation has not been confined to the shores of India. He has been one of the most effective and successful representatives of India in the highest councils of the world, including the UN Security Council. We get a glimpse of his role as India's permanent representative to the UN in New York, but he also served earlier as India's permanent representative to the UN offices in Geneva, where I had the privilege of serving under his leadership at the then Committee on Disarmament, which later became the Conference on Disarmament. Despite having served under him only for a few months before his return to India, I learned much about the arcane and sometimes very tortuous dynamics of multilateral diplomacy from watching how he dealt with contentious issues, never losing his cool, always the voice of reason, offering compromise where possible, but digging in his heels, but with a smile on his face when necessary. My wife Anita and I were singularly fortunate to have been treated with great affection and courtesy by Mrs. Gharekhan and Shri Gharekhan. We miss her in our midst today. She would have been singularly proud of this moment. On behalf of all of us present here, I would also like to pay homage to her memory. The book Centers of Power is a fascinating account of Shri Gharekhan's experiences at two very different but most consequential centers of power. The domestic one in the Prime Minister's office and the one international at the UN Security Council. The book offers insights that are rare not only because they have not been written about, but because the manner in which Shri Gharekhan recounts his experiences. This is an extraordinary low-key, honest account focused on the very interesting and I would say fascinating interplay of issues and personalities. And so his pen portraits of the leaders that he encountered are really some of the most I mean they are not only very engaging portraits, but they are also presented with a certain sense of humor by Shri Gharekhan. The storyteller is both an eyewitness but also a participant in many consequential events. For example, part 2 of his book, which deals with the Iraq War, I think is probably one of the best accounts I have read about the war. And perhaps it could in fact serve as a separate book by itself, as a case study of one of the most historic events in our recent times. Of course, there is not only as a sense of humor, but throughout the book you find that even when Mr. Gharekhan is talking about very, very critical events, historical junctures, there is a certain bemusement with which he is recounting that, as if perhaps with a distance, he is looking at the foibles of great personalities, and maybe not only does he, I think, show how people should not think too much of themselves, but it is also with a certain personal humility that he talks about his experiences, as if I have seen that, done that. Okay, let it be. Congratulations, sir, on the publication of this most fascinating and readable book about your service at the crucible of the currents of power. The one thing I take away from this is that far more diplomacy is expended in the corridors of power at home than perhaps abroad. With those opening remarks, may I now request the very distinguished author of the book, Shri Chinmaya Gharekhan, to tell us about how he came to write this book, and perhaps offer some additional insights to all what he has already provided in the book for us to read. You have the floor, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Ambassador Shyam Saran, Ambassador, respected, distinguished colleague, Maharaj Krishna Rasgotra ji, Shri Natwar Singh ji, who has been an inspiring factor for me in the writing of this book. I'm most grateful to him for that. Former Vice President, Shri Hamid Ansari ji, a dear friend for a long, long time. And I think sometimes we suffer together in the Prime Minister's office on various protocol and other matters. I'm very grateful, first of all, to India International Center and its president, Ambassador Shyam Saran, for very generously hosting this event. I am most grateful, Shyam, for that. I also want to thank the publishers, Rupa. I think his executive chairman is here somewhere. I'd like to thank him. I'd like to thank Rudra Narayan Sharma, who helped edit the book. It took some doing, but he was very patient, and so was I, actually. And we finally managed to produce this book. I've often asked, how long did it take me to write this book? So there is a long answer to that and a short answer to that. The long answer is it took me 4.5 years. Because 4.5 years is the period that I spent in Prime Minister's office, and the diary was written over a period of 4.5 years. So it took me 4.5 years to really write the book. And then it took 4.5 months to produce the book. The two of the principal characters in the book happen to be present here, Ambassador Rasgotra and Ambassador Natwar Singh. Rasgotra ji is going to be 100 next year. And so I was wondering whether I should wish him and express my ardent desire to see him at his 100th birthday. But then I restrained myself from doing that. I was reminded of a story about George Bernard Shaw. Now, when he was celebrating his 90th birthday, some young man went up to him and said, "Congratulations, I hope to see you on your 100th birthday." So Bernard Shaw replied to him, "Why not? You look reasonably healthy to me." Now the book itself is, as was pointed out, in two parts. The one part deals with my years in Prime Minister's office, and the other in the Security Council, dealing with the first Gulf War. And I think, as was mentioned by Ambassador Shyam Saran, the second part about the Gulf War, I think if somebody decides to read only one part of the book, I would say read the second part of the Iraq War. I think it, from my point of view, it brings out the intricacies of international diplomacy and the importance that domestic reasons plays in your foreign policy. Of course, we all know that domestic policy always trumps foreign policy and takes precedence over foreign policy. But here in that part 2 of the book, this is when it was a great source of despair and regret for me that whatever position India took on that war was dictated not primarily but entirely by domestic considerations. And it was quite an embarrassing experience for me once when our foreign minister, Mr. K. was talking to the foreign minister of Kuwait. And you remember that in that war when Saddam Hussein tried to swallow Kuwait, India took a very pro-Saddam Hussein stand. And they thought that Saddam was a great friend of India, which of course he was not. But somehow the government of the day was convinced that Saddam Hussein was our friend. And so in spite of all the indications to the contrary, we continued to take that position, and we believed, and some people genuinely believed, that Saddam will win the war against the Americans. Now, I just couldn't believe that, but it happened that way. I have written the book, as I said, with malice towards none. I'm not sure about the charity for all part of it. But I'm sure there are some things in the book which may not go down well with some people, including two of the gentlemen who are present here, Mr. Natwar Singh and Mr. Rasgotra. But I have tried to be honest to myself, and I have written as I saw, as I heard, as I observed, and as I experienced. I think there are many things about Indira Gandhi, about Rajiv Gandhi, and how I found working with them. The contrasting style, you will see that Rajiv Gandhi's style was very different from Indira Gandhi's style. And in fact, some of us thought for some time, working with Rajiv Gandhi, that the easiest thing for us to do would be to tell him that this was what the former Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi, decided on a particular issue. And we thought that, that would be it. But it worked just the other way. He was not happy. And one very senior person made the mistake of saying, we were discussing Sri Lanka, the parliament question, and this particular person told him, this is what your mother had decided. And Rajiv Gandhi was most upset about it. Firstly, he did not like your mother part of it. And second, he said that, well, that may have been the case, but this is the policy right now. This is my policy towards Sri Lanka. And if I may add in parenthesis, his policy was the more correct one than his mother's policy. So a thing like that, I must also confess and apologize, because it seems that there are some mistakes in the book. Not on substance or anything like that, but some names that I have mentioned happen to be not the name that I should have mentioned. So I apologize for that, and I'm very sorry about it. Now, the book, which covers a period of from 81 to 86, and I was there right when Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated on 31st October 84, and I was in that house, 1 Safdarjung Road, within minutes of the assassination, and I saw bullets lying on the floor. The blood was there, and but you see, we have all this drill that when something happens, ambulance will come in 5 minutes. For VVIPs I'm talking about. And there is always an ambulance in attendance, in fact, for VVIPs. It all broke down. Nothing worked. There was no ambulance. She had to be taken in an ordinary ambassador car. The roads were not cleared. There was nobody at the AIMS hospital touched me as a human being. So I was full of admiration for her. She was a tough person, but not tough with officials, that I can tell you. Nobody in the Prime Minister's office was afraid to speak their mind. I'm not saying that she welcomed differing opinions. I don't know whether she welcomed or not, but if you told her something, she was not at all not upset, but she kind of in her own way thanked you. Not in so many words, but she did that. So I went. But Rajiv Gandhi's style was very different. Rajiv Gandhi was much younger, of course, and very handsome, very good-looking man, young man. And wherever he went, girls, women of all ages would want to shake his head. I remember when we went to Bangladesh for the first SARC meeting, the founding meeting, the High Commissioner there had organized a reception. And so there were hundreds of people who came, but the women who came, they shake his hand, and I heard a couple of women say, "I'm not going to wash this hand when I go back." And some women would come again and again to shake his hand. And he was that kind of popular. But when we went to New York, then he got very upset once, because he had told me in Delhi before we left that I want to spend all my time in the General Assembly Hall. I don't want to spend time meeting, calling on people, this and that. So I said, okay. So I had conveyed that to the mission in New York. But when we went there, when the program came, it was full of meeting Excellency so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. So he was very upset. He said, "Chinmaya, didn't I tell you?" I said, "Yes, sir, you did tell me." And it was conveyed. He said, "Change all this. I'm not going to meet anyone. You people are not doing your job properly." And I said, "Okay, we'll take care of this." And I told Krishnan and all, and we worked together, and he spent as much time as he wished to in the plenary hall. But he was very, very different, and sometimes he lost his temper. But again, he was very polite, dealing with officials. I have no complaint. So there you have this book. It's not a very long book, and as far as I know, it's not a very difficult book to read and to go through. Some of you may enjoy, some of you may enjoy it less, some more. But I am very grateful to all of you for coming in such strength, such large numbers. I'm really very grateful, very, very touched. I did not expect this. Maybe I don't deserve this, but thank you nonetheless for coming. Thank you very much.
I think if you had any doubts whether this book should be read and perhaps reread, I think all those doubts would have been settled by the shorter storytelling that we have been privileged to hear from Ambassador Gharekhan. It's now my great pleasure to request Shri Maharaj Krishna Rasgotra, Foreign Secretary, and as I said, Doyen of the service, to please say a few words on this occasion. Please, you can sit here.
Yes, I would like
yes.
sitting here. How much time do I have?
As much time as you like.
Chinmaya, you feel safe sitting next to me? I have read this book in the last 3 or 4 weeks, twice over, and relished it the better every time I read the same page, second or third time. I want to compliment you. I like your style. You have a good style. I think the world knows that. But this book is of very special value for several reasons. It gives us many very interesting inklings into the function of Indira Ji as Prime Minister of India. These are not available anywhere else. That's number one. He has given pen pictures of this great leader, which I have not seen anywhere. Insights into her decision making. That about people have written, but they haven't seen her in operation in those things. And those who have seen her in operation, they have kept these secrets tight in their chest and lost them. The narrative is, as in your earlier book, is very, very engaging. There is a rich shower of compliments and failures of a senior officer. It always tickles the younger officers. So that is, it makes the book a little more engaging, little more interesting, and it promotes the sales. Why not? The book is meant to be sold. There are several spicy little stories in the book, first part, but I'll come to those later. I agree with you, Mr. President. I think you said it. That the second part of the book is far more important. It gives an account of the United Nations inside account. We saw it, see Security Council functioning for inside as permanent representative, as PR of India to the United Nations. He himself, I think, already had made a name there because of his past experience, 5 years in PMO. Earlier, in younger days, in Vietnam and elsewhere, I think in the communication, you have carried ambassadorial posts with great dignity and public effect. What is interesting and really engaging in this The parts he describes the Security Council functioning during after Iraq's occupation of Kuwait, and the atmosphere building up under American push of a coming war. I think as I read the account, I thought in this particular period, you were about the only sensible man around there in the Security Council. I'm not exaggerating. People were talking of, bombs and missiles and shelters, and where is Saddam Hussein? We must be gotten hold of and punished and so on and so forth. Your counsel was always very sober, not too pushy. I think for that role, Americans were the worst culprits. Moderate, constructive, in the direction of peacemaking, conciliation, finding other ways. That portion has a spicy part also, and this is the Odyssean of a man called Inder Gujral. He was constantly flying to Moscow, then to Iran, and then to Moscow again, then to one of the capitals. It's a fascinating account also. He was a man of many unavailing enterprises. And this was one of them. I think you tried to sober him down, but you didn't succeed there. I think some elements in the MEA wanted to sober him down, but there were stories that Indians in Iraq, in Kuwait, were dying of starvation. And Mr. Gujral promptly put 10,000 tons of food grain on a ship, which found it very difficult to find a berth, hovered around. And then after weeks, maybe I think a month or two of waiting, it had to go back with the same load of grain because the grain was not wanted there. It was not there were no starvations, there was no shortage of food. The account of the Security Council function that you have provided for people who are interested is unique, unmatched. There are some accounts, others. I've spent some time and years in the United States. But he and I did certain, I had borrowed time. When I came, I had not been in India for 14 years. And I had pleaded with this principal secretary, Mr. Alexander, then finally with Mrs. Gandhi. They wanted to, poor man, Mr. Sathe, my predecessor, has 2 more months to go. They wanted to push him out on forced leave. So I went to Madam, and I said, at the end of his career, he's a gentleman officer, he has done well, he has a good reputation. Ma'am, you leave him in post. Alexander, the objection was that he wants to go to Korea for foreign secretary talks, he wants to go to New Zealand for foreign secretary talks. He said, Rasgotra, you should be doing that. I said, I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to put an end to these foreign service talks. My suggestion was agreed to. I was very happy. And I then decided to spend that time to meet every single officer from top to the section officer level in individual, bilateral discussions, talks. My purpose was to find out what a particular officer is doing. Where is he at now in his particular job? his character, his bearing, his personality, his prejudices, and so on and so forth. And I spent the longest time with this man, I think little over 2 hours. We talked about Pakistan mostly, but there were other things also we talked about. That is, Chinmaya, when I made up my mind that if a chance comes to send an officer from MEA to PMO, Chinmaya Gharekhan would be my choice. Not to get rid of you, but to help the PMO. Because I think that is really, there are no centers of power. There was only one center of power. And if MEA, by planting a man there, could manage that center, and he's great at management. He did a wonderful job there. The MEA ranked very low in Indira Gandhi's estimation. She told me in so many words, because there were divisions, rivalries, there were contentions going on, and that had to be put right, which I did when I finally took over. On most things that you say in the first part, they are so flattering to me, so I thank you for that. But there are two different perceptions. One was handling of a hijacking. Chinmaya Sahib, this was my third handling.
Hijack.
You were not there in these cases. Now, when I was handling this, were you with me?
I was the PM of the last time.
You were not there. Alexander used to sit with me.
No, I was not involved in the high level.
No, you were in PMO at the time. But Alexander wanted to sit with me, so I said, this is very good, because the first task was to wake up Indiraji, maybe at 2 o'clock in the night or somewhere. And I would ask Alexander, I said, please give a call to the Prime Minister. No. He said, you give the call. And I must say, when on 3 occasions, in handling 3 hijackings, when I called her, sometimes at 3 in the morning, sometimes 2 o'clock, this one was, I think, we started during daytime and then the whole night, and then we went on for the next day. The complaint is, or perception is that Rasgotra did not get back the baggage of the hijackers. Damn it, my friend, what would we do with the baggage? We wanted our men, our people, number one. Priorities were laid down to me in the first hijacking by Indiraji. Try and save the aeroplane, Indian aeroplane. And if you can persuade the Pakistanis, then get the hijackers also. But in the first one, the hijackers landed the plane and they just vanished. Now, struggle started. So Indiraji asked me, who are you talking to in there, Pakistan? I said, ma'am, I have been discussing this with Mr. Alexander. I think I will call up the president. I know him, but he should talk to me. He said, don't leave it to Alexander. So I rang up at some awful hour. I rang up, I had his number, his secretary's number, because I had been conducting talks. And I woke up, after waking up my own Prime Minister, I woke up the Pakistan president. He had heard it about the hijacking already. And I said, sir, again, your friends from Kashmir have brought a plane. Sir, what are you going to do about it? He said, Rasgotra, क्या करें? मैंने अपनी बहन से कहा है, आपसे भी कहा, कश्मीर में सिक्योरिटी टाइटन करो, वो नहीं किया. Even 3 years later, that was the story. So I said, anyway, we have this problem on hand. Can you first get the passengers released? That was done. Then I said, sir, gently I said, very gently, I said, sir, we like to have these fellows back. वो कहता जी ये तो मेरे ही लोग नहीं मान रहे. And he said to me that without my permission, somebody there has given them a pistol, one pistol, not two, and some ammunition. So I said, what is the purpose of this? You see, this is what he said. What he meant really, I don't know. He said, Rasgotra Sahib, I would like to get rid of these people. Is it okay with you if I emptied plane, I let them fly out somewhere? I asked him, I said, can you arrange the refueling in a way that they should not be able to go too far away somewhere? He said, yes, that I can do. Some close by Arab country and so on. This talk took place. And the result was finally, I could not bring the baggage back of the hijackers. God knows what would we be doing with the baggage if I could get the hijackers back, well. So the plane flew, and I rang up my friend Bandari Ramesh. I said, now you get ready to fly out at short notice. Keep in touch with the DGCA to give you an idea of which way they are heading. And he did his job, and I told him that you go there now and see if, with the help of these people who are more friendly, more cooperative, the UAE government people, if you can, bring them back. And Bandari did bring them back. He brought them back as a great joy in India that Bandari came back full of elation, naturally. You also accused me of euphoria. I am not a very euphoric person. Bandari came back very happy and very satisfied, and he done a great job. Everybody was pleased. He said to me, Krishna, can I hold a press conference? I said, Ramesh, my friend, if you want to forego your chance of becoming foreign secretary, then go and hold a press conference. Oh, he said. I said, people don't like bureaucrats, to take credit for their achievements in government service and so on and so forth. So that's the story. But one more story I will tell, and I close. I think we are getting short of time. Chinmaya, somewhere you say post NAM visit of Prime Minister to New York. You say that from this particular journey, Prime Minister excluded even Rasgotra, because I usually used to travel with her, from going in her plane. Hey, my friend, you think I was still at the age of 23 a nanny's boy, wanting to sit on lap all the time? You would never get chance otherwise. The real truth was that we had decided, after discussion with Indira Ji, that Ramesh and I would go in advance because there was some, work to be done there. King of Morocco had come, I was the ambassador there, President of France would be coming, And I had been ambassador there. There were people she wanted me to meet and tell them what we had done in the NAM, etc. So I hope I'm forgiven for that. I compliment you again. I congratulate you. This is a rare book which everybody should read.
Thank you very much, sir, for adding some further very interesting anecdotes to those which have already been mentioned here in the book. Having been in the Prime Minister's office, one of the jobs that I'm sure that you are aware of is the seating plan in the VIP aircraft, which the Joint Secretary PMO is responsible for, or used to be. And I can tell you that that is one of the most sensitive jobs that the GSPMO has to do. So I can testify to the importance that you have given to that particular act. Thank you. It is now my great pleasure to request Shri Natwar Singh ji, former External Affairs Minister, to please say a few words on this occasion. You have the floor, sir.
अरे जरा ताली तो बजाओ.
ताली तो बजाओ.
वो भी बजाना. Can you see me? Okay, because this is very too high. Ansari साहब, Rasgotra साहब, Gharekhan साहब, Shyam Saran साहब. I will not speak about the book because they have all spoken about it. Although I had something to do with the book being published by Rupa, because there was some delay in the book being published. So I kept pestering Rupa. Is Kapish here from Rupa? Rupa? No, he was here when I came in. I'm going to speak about the author, whom I have known since 1958. Now, this paper says that we should confine ourselves to 10 minutes. Now, Krishna Rasgotra has successfully exceeded that limit. Now, many years ago, when I was posted to London, I went to a school Founders Day function. And I very unwisely asked the principal, "What do you want me to speak about?" And he said, "About 5 minutes." But I will exceed 5 minutes here. First of all, when Gharekhan joined the Foreign Service, there was a problem with his name. And many people thought that he belonged to the Muslim Brotherhood. Because Gharekhan. But gradually people got used to the fact that, he's a Gujarati and he's a good Hindu than anybody else. Now he's one of the very few people who has worked with two prime ministers, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. So when the book was being printed and there was some delay in publication, so he used to ring me up, rather agitated. But the fact remains that he was privy to so many top secrets that he has not mentioned those in this book. Although I told him, I said, restraint and autobiography don't go together. You must be able to say, but he being the decent person that he is, he's not written those stories and those incidents which took place when he was in Mrs. Gandhi's office for a fairly long time. I had also worked 5 years with Mrs. Gandhi's office in the early 66, 71. And when I resigned from the Foreign Service, I went to see her and told her, Madam, I'm going home and my first job will be to get a khadi, kurta, pajama, jawar jacket. So she looked at me and said,
generalities about the qualities that have characterized this role down the ages. A modern manual is thus remarkably similar to what Kautilya had prescribed for those whom he advised. Modern day diplomats and civil servants are called upon to do likewise, and Chinmaya Gharekhan is an excellent example. The book before us is in reality 2 books in one, and this has been said earlier also. And while the 2 parts stand on their own, they also show how the first might have shaped the performance of some requirements of the other. This in itself is an infrequent happening and lends a certain credence and uniqueness to it. Our author has a unique experience of working with 2 prime ministers who both took keen interest in foreign affairs. The years with Indira Gandhi coincided with the meetings in New Delhi of NAM and Chogam, and she took keen interest in both. He has also recorded some of her pithy reactions to individual personalities on the global stage, and her spat earlier with the then Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke. In bilateral relations, inevitably, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and China dominated. In internal discussions in her own office on relations with China, her main concern was that we should not appear to be obstinate or unrealistic in the eyes of the world. And I quote her, the only jarring note in her speech on Punjab in July 1984, and I quote him rather, was repeated references to my family. And the author's comment is, this overemphasis did not sound decent in a democracy. Ground was explored for better relations with the United States. An observation about the Soviet Union is noteworthy. And I quote the author, Indira Gandhi did not seem to share her father's ideological affinity with the Russians, adding that the people she really was anxious to please were the British. She was extremely keen to attend Prince Charles's wedding and was disappointed because she could not, because the then President Giri, insisted on going. Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was a younger person, less patient with procedures. In Mr. Ambassador Gharekhan's judgment, he wanted immediate decision and expected us to follow up without delay. The author himself enjoyed this style, but was skeptical whether these changes in mentality could filter down to lower levels of the bureaucracy. And this is a comment by the author. He was clearly not in a hurry to settle with China. The second section of the book has an interesting opening, coinciding as it did with the Kuwait crisis of August 1990 and the policy dilemma it posed for New Delhi. In Ambassador Gharekhan's judgment, it was not a tilt but surrender. And the subsequent official statement was softened somewhat after the intervention of Ambassador Gharekhan from New York. As the crisis developed, diplomatic postures of different actors evolved, and the book gives an interesting assessment of these. The Americans specifically conveyed to Prime Minister Chandrasekhar their appreciation of the role in the negotiations of the Indian representative. Ambassador Gharekhan's earlier book on the working of the Security Council has a foreword by the then UN Secretary General, Dr. Boutros Ghali, who characterized it as an intimate, honest, and highly professional account of the working of that body. Particularly relevant is Ambassador Gharekhan's assessment of India's role on the expansion of the permanent membership of the Security Council. He feels that an expansion of its numbers is possible, but, and I quote him, there is zero chance, unquote, of the new permanent members having the right of veto. The two parts together give a glimpse of how global leaders and their representatives looked at challenging questions of their day. This is certainly a book which will be read, and read, as Rasgotra Sahab has said, again and again. Thank you very much. Jai.
Thank you very much, sir, for those remarks. Although we are a little ahead of time, or rather we have crossed the closing time, but I think it might be worthwhile to have maybe about 5 to 10 minutes for any questions which any of you would like to pose to Ambassador Gharekhan. Yes, Saurabh?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, and all the panelists, such a distinguished galaxy. So, short question to you, sir, and to all the panelists, the experience. The general assessment about the functioning of the Security Council is poor globally in terms of its mandate. The functioning of the Security Council has not drawn laurels in terms of the world situation. How would you say to the suggestion or possibility of its being required to throw open its sessions to the public? Thank you.
Security Council meetings should be thrown open to the public.
Well, the Security Council, when it meets in a public session, it is open to everyone. Everybody can attend that session. But almost all the work of the Security Council is done in a private room, which is called the informal consultations. That is where all the 15 members get together and have a fairly frank, candid discussion. And this is where they try to accommodate one another, find some compromise solutions, and so on and so forth. So the real work is done in that little room behind the chamber of Security Council. And so I I personally would not be in favor of opening up the private discussions to the public. Because firstly, of course, it's a very small room. And secondly, this is where members really negotiate. And we don't want, the Security Council doesn't want, then every member, everybody who is there, they will start interfering and coming in the way of reaching consensus. So it will be an absurd idea to throw open private meetings of the members of the council to public.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I think we will achieve even less if you had public hearings. One more question. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, can you give brief about Saddam Hussein? You said we were having the impression that he is friendly to India. So there was some confusion about Saddam Hussein.
No, I think it is always a mistake to think that a particular country or a particular head of state of a particular country is your friend. There is no such thing as friend in international relations. So Saddam Hussein was far from being our friend. It was generally believed that Iraq under Saddam Hussein was the first Muslim country to recognize the new state of Bangladesh. And that's why we were very grateful to him. But I have found no documentary evidence to support that impression that Saddam Hussein was the first to recognize. In fact, I think it was the small country of Senegal in West Africa which was the first country to accord recognition to Bangladesh. But to think that Saddam was a friend of India was not the way to go, I think.
Thank you, sir. We now come to a close of this session, but before that, may I request Nikhil Gharekhan to please come and say a few words at the conclusion of this session.
Thank you. I have, half an hour? Is that enough? No, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. It's, as a son, it is a source of extreme pride to see my father's book being launched in front of such an esteemed crowd. So I'm very, very, very proud of that. And my dear mother and his beloved wife is, of course, watching and beaming her, pleasure at us from above. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to say that what this book has done, writing this book for my father, besides the sense of pride that I get from it, I have a great sense of joy and relief at the activity that he had during writing the book, the months that he spent, the time and the concentration that he was able to do, the distraction that this provided him in a very difficult time personally, I think was what this book has done the most, and what I feel, the best, more than even the fleeting sense of pride right now. So I hope, selfishly, that this book is a success, because then I can convince him to write the next book. So thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a very good suggestion.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. Very moving words. Thank you. And I'm sure that, especially seeing the reaction, the reception that this book has had, certainly the inspiration will be there to write the next one. It remains for me to express my very grateful thanks, first of all, to the author himself, Ambassador Gharekhan. It has been a personal privilege for me because he is someone under whom I really, in a sense, he was a great mentor to me, especially as far as multilateral work is concerned, and always been very kind and affectionate towards me and my family. So it is a particular privilege for me to be able to host this book launch this evening. So thank you very much, sir, for being here and for accepting our invitation to launch your book here. Also, my very, very grateful thanks to Vice President Hamid Ansari ji, and to Shri Natwar Singh ji, and of course, Ambassador Rasgotra, for being present on this occasion, gracing this occasion, and to all of you for turning up in such large numbers to celebrate this occasion. Thank you very much.